Baruch Spinoza was a 17th-century Dutch philosopher who approached human emotions as if they were a mathematical problem. He didn't believe our feelings were random or mysterious. Instead, he argued that they followed the same natural laws as everything else in the universe. He wrote his most famous work, Ethics, in the style of a geometry textbook, analyzing emotions like anger, fear, and love with logical definitions, propositions, and proofs. Because of this, Spinoza didn't see happiness as a matter of luck, a fleeting emotion, or a reward from the universe. To him, happiness is the experience of increasing mental clarity. It's the freedom that comes from no longer being confused by life, understanding how reality works, and gaining control over your own mind. This way of thinking is called rationalism. In Spinoza's time, just like today, people imagined God as a giant, invisible king sitting outside the universe, judging actions, granting wishes, and occasionally bending the rules of physics to perform a miracle. But Spinoza questioned this entirely. He suggested that religious texts were written by ordinary men, not dictated by the divine. He even doubted that humans had immortal souls, and argued that God was not a personal figure sitting in heaven judging our actions. Because of these beliefs, he was expelled from his Jewish community in 1656 when he was just 23 years old. But instead of fighting back or begging for forgiveness, he calmly packed his bags, changed his first name to Benedict, and moved on. He stayed calm while his life was falling apart because of a three-word Latin phrase forming the bedrock of his entire philosophy. That phrase was Deus sive natura, which translates to God, or nature. For Spinoza, God isn't outside the universe pulling the strings. God is the string. God is the universe itself. The laws of physics, the movement of planets, the changing seasons, and the endless chain of cause and effect, that infinite, interconnected system, is what Spinoza called God. Nature and God are not two separate things. They are one and the same. He argued that nothing in the universe happens independently. Think of reality like a massive line of falling dominoes. Every event is triggered by a specific past cause. You are late to work because of traffic. The traffic built up because of an accident. The accident happened because a driver was distracted by a ringing phone. Every single moment is entirely the result of the moment that came right before it. Spinoza actually used geometry to explain this. The internal angles of a triangle will always add up to 180 degrees. The triangle does not choose this. It is simply a fixed, unchangeable rule. Similarly, events in the universe do not happen by chance. They follow strict, unchangeable laws. Since God and nature are the same thing, God isn't a person making choices or changing things. God is those fixed rules. Asking why God didn't make the universe differently is like asking why God didn't make a four-sided triangle. It simply doesn't make sense. Everything, from a thunderstorm to you spilling your morning coffee, is just the next domino falling because of countless past causes. Happiness starts when you stop taking the universe personally, accept reality for what it truly is, and stop wasting your energy on things you absolutely cannot change. If the universe operates on an unbreakable chain of cause and effect, where do you fit in? What is the point of doing anything at all if it is all predetermined? Spinoza observed that everything has a built-in drive to keep existing. A stone naturally resists being crushed. A plant will twist itself around a brick wall just to reach the sunlight. He called this driving force conatus. For humans, conatus goes beyond basic survival. It is the underlying momentum to increase our vitality, our capability and our power to act in the world. It is the drive to thrive. We think of happiness as some finish line, a destination we reach once we get the right job, buy a house, or find the perfect partner. But Spinoza saw it differently. Joy is the feeling of your conatus succeeding, the sensation of your personal power and clarity genuinely growing. Sadness, on the other hand, isn't just a random bad mood. It is the friction you feel when your drive is blocked, the feeling of your capability shrinking. Imagine it is a random Tuesday evening. Option A is an upscale networking event. You think it is a smart career move, so you go. You spend 2 hours forcing small talk and trying to impress strangers. You might gain a few business cards, but you come home feeling completely hollow. Your mental energy is depleted. Your power to act just shrank. Option B is skipping the event to attend a demanding martial arts class or swim hard laps for an hour. In the moment, it is physically grueling. But when you walk out of the gym, your mind is quiet. You feel sharper and better equipped to handle whatever stress hits you the next day. Your capability genuinely increased. Spinoza argued that we spend most of our lives operating on what he called inadequate ideas. You can think of an inadequate idea as looking at the world through a keyhole. Because you only see a very small part of the action in front of you, you miss the larger chain of events causing it. You judge the event only by how it makes you feel in that moment. Imagine you are in a meeting and a coworker insults your project. If you rely on an inadequate idea, you make it all about you. You get angry and assume they had absolute free will to do the right thing, and maliciously chose to hurt you instead. You spend the next 4 days obsessing over the interaction, and your power to act in the world shrinks considerably. The way out, according to Spinoza, is shifting to adequate ideas. Shifting to adequate ideas means using logic to understand the real mechanical causes behind why things happen. You stop looking through the keyhole and open the door to see the entire room. When you apply an adequate idea to that coworker, you step back and look at the facts. Why did they lash out? Maybe they are terrified of being laid off or dealing with private stress. According to Spinoza, people are just the sum of their biology, their traumas, and their past experiences. They didn't choose to be a villain in your life because of who you are. They are just another domino falling. If a dog bites you because it was abused its entire life, you learn to stay away from it, but you don't hate the dog. You know it is simply acting out its conditioning. The same logic applies to every difficult person you encounter. This exact same shift in perspective also dismantles negative passions toward yourself, like regret. Regret is one of the most draining emotions we experience. You look back at a failed relationship, a blown opportunity, or a terrible financial decision, and you torture yourself with the same thought. I should have known better. I should have made a different choice. But Spinoza argues that this entire thought process is an illusion. To believe you could have made a different choice is to pretend you were a completely different person at that moment. Based on the exact information you had, the specific stress you were under, your past biology and triggers, and the precise way your brain was working on that day, you made the only choice you could possibly have made. Given that identical physical state, mental state, and environment, you would have made that same choice 100 times out of 100. Spinoza divided all human emotions into two categories: passions and actions. Passions are feelings that happen to you because of an outside trigger. If someone praises your work and you feel great, that is a passion. If your car breaks down and you get angry, that is also a passion. When you live your life through passions, your mood depends completely on whether the outside world decides to be nice to you, and that makes you a puppet. Actions, on the other hand, are emotions generated entirely from the inside. They happen when your mind is working on its own power. Imagine you spend weeks pouring your energy into a project and you publish it. If you live life through passions, you spend the rest of the day desperately refreshing the page, hoping the numbers go up, completely dependent on external applause to determine whether you feel good about yourself. Now imagine approaching that exact same scenario through actions. You put the project out there, and the reception is terrible. If you are operating actively, you step back and use your reason. You realize maybe the timing was bad, or maybe the core idea wasn't explained clearly enough. You map out the exact causes behind the failure. The moment your mind stops being a victim and starts problem solving, it takes back control. This simple act of using your reason to clearly understand reality is what Spinoza called active joy. To practice this daily, regularly do things where the action itself is the only reward. If you go for a swim, don't time your laps. If you read a book, don't do it to sound smart in a conversation later. Do it purely to engage your mind and body, not to impress an audience waiting to validate you. Start treating daily frustrations like mechanical puzzles. When a deal falls through or someone cancels plans, your default reaction is a passion. You feel rejected. To practice active joy, you have to catch that feeling and immediately step back. Ask yourself why it happened. Maybe their budget was slashed, or maybe they are simply overwhelmed by their own life. The moment you force your brain to shift from, "I am a victim of this," to, "I logically understand why this happened," you replace the feeling of helplessness with the satisfaction of a clear mind solving a problem. Finally, start measuring your days by capability, not outcomes. We usually judge a good day by what we received, but you don't control those outcomes. Instead, at the end of each day, ask yourself, did I handle stress better today? Did I think clearly? Did I respond to an annoying situation without losing my temper? Spinoza said, we need to learn to view our lives sub specie aeternitatis, which translates to under the aspect of eternity. We get stressed by our daily problems because our field of vision is narrow. Think about what happens when you receive terrible news, like going through a breakup or taking a serious financial hit. We panic, and the problem feels enormous because we are only thinking about the short term, only looking at a tiny fraction of reality, and certainly not the infinite chain of causes behind it. Spinoza believed that to see things clearly, you have to use your reason to force your mind to zoom out and look at the whole picture. Try looking at your current problem not as a crisis happening today, but as just one moment in your entire lifespan. Then zoom out even further into the span of human history. When you look at your life from the perspective of eternity, you realize that your life is short, and you are just one but necessary link in an infinite chain of cause and effect that has been running long before you were born and will continue long after you are gone. From this zoomed-out perspective, that business failure or that ruined plan is no longer some tragic, unfair deviation from how your life was supposed to go. It is just one microscopic domino falling exactly as it had to set up whatever happens next in the universe. Once you accept that you are a small part of a much bigger system, your everyday worries become considerably easier to handle. The problems that once felt overwhelming begin to shrink when measured against the vast, unbroken timeline of everything that has ever existed and everything yet to come. Spinoza believed the ultimate goal of his philosophy was a mindset he called amor de intellectualis, which means the intellectual love of God, or the intellectual love of nature. To Spinoza, love is a deep, unbreakable acceptance of reality exactly as it is. Think about how we normally live. We spend our time fighting reality by making deals with ourselves. We say, I will finally be happy if I hit this financial goal or if my boss praises me. We treat the present moment like an annoying waiting room for a better future, always looking for an external reward to give us permission to finally relax. Achieving the intellectual love of nature means stopping the habit of attaching your peace of mind to external outcomes entirely. Imagine you just spent 6 months rebuilding a business, and today is launch day. Your happiness no longer depends on how the market reacts. If you are practicing amor de intellectualis, you still put in the exact same amount of hard work. You still care deeply about the quality of the business, but you look at the launch logically. You realize that whether the project succeeds or fails today depends on a million falling dominoes you have no control over, including the state of the economy, social media, algorithms, and timing. Practicing the intellectual love of nature means you accept reality without any bitterness. When your mind genuinely grasps this, Spinoza says you enter a state of blessedness. It means you work, build things, and participate fully in society. But the desperation is completely gone. You no longer need the market to validate you. You aren't just surviving the chaos of life anymore, waiting for a future win to save you. You are calmly observing the world and finding quiet joy in understanding your place within the whole.